Ladies and gentlemen, the 1 o'clock hour has arrived. I will call the meeting to order, the Public Improvement Committee to order. Madam Chair, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, ma'am. Councilmember Days?
Here.
Councilmember Fitch?
Here.
Councilmember Clancy? I think she will be joining us as soon as possible.
She did say that she would be running a little late, so we do have a quorum and we will proceed.
Yes, Madam Chair. Yes.
Thank you very much. The purpose of the meeting is to review the Planning Commission report regarding PC 43-19 Delmar Gardens of Meramec Valley Incorporated, request for a CUP in R-2, 16.09 acres, northwest side of Gravois Road, approximately 275 feet southwest of Gravois Place, and bordered to the south by the Jefferson County line. The Planning Commission approval, 3rd County Council District. The committee takes official notice of and admits into evidence all St. Louis County ordinances and resolutions. As a matter of introduction, ladies and gentlemen, we have 1 hour and 45 minutes for this presentation. I do understand that we have about 40 minutes of public comment, so I would ask you to be concise in your comments, and let's move the meeting forward. The first up is the presentation from the Planning Committee. Gail, you and your comrades, proceed.
Madam Chair, may I interrupt a moment?
Yes.
Some people were not on the meeting yet, but can you please mute your microphones if you are not participating at this time? That will cut down on the background noise. Thank you.
Gail?
Okay.
Yes.
You can proceed.
Okay.
Thank you. So we're here this afternoon to discuss 43-19 Delmar Gardens of Meramec Valley Incorporated. So a timeline of how we got to this afternoon. All requests for conditional use permits do require a public hearing in front of the Planning Commission. And for this petition, that did occur on October 14th of 2019. The Planning Commission then voted to grant this conditional use permit in February of 2020. There was some delay in time as there was a back and forth site development plan after the public hearing. The County Council did exercise its power of review and send this back to the Commission in April. The Commission reiterated its approval, and then the County Council received and filed that reiteration of approval and sent it to this committee back in May. So the current site, it is a 16.09 acre site located on the northwest side of Gravois Road, approximately 375 feet southwest of Gravois Place, and bordered to the south by the Jefferson County line. It is currently developed with one single-family detached residence, as well as an existing 200-unit senior living facility, which is operated by Delmar Gardens of Meramec Valley. The 200-unit senior living facility is a mixture of assisted care and skilled nursing care units, and the existing living care facility is 2 stories in height. So this is the site, hatchered in yellow. You can see that there are single-family detached residences that abut the site to the north as well as to the west. To the east is Gravois Road, and across the highway there are multifamily residences, as well as a significant commercial node is located just off of this screen. And in land use, you can see the yellow does denote single-family detached homes, whereas the brown is a multifamily developments, and there is one blue church to the north. Zooming in a little bit, this gives you a better close-up of how this site is currently developed. It does have existing structure there with a white roof. It has been in existence since the mid-1980s, and it has been permitted through a conditional use permit since that time. And there was one single-family detached residence on the western side of the petition site. So the request is for a conditional use permit to allow for the construction and operation of a nursing home and group home for the elderly for 315 total units in a senior living facility. There are currently 200 units developed there. They're asking for the ability to develop an additional 115 units in a new structure that would bring it to that total of 315 units. 55 of those units would be independent living for elderly individuals, and the remaining 260 units would be a mixture of skilled nursing care units and assisted care units. It would be a new structure of 3 stories in height and approximately 175,000 square feet in area. And again, the existing structure would additionally remain at the site. When the Planning Commission granted its approval, it did iterate several or name several reasons and rationales why. First of all, the development fulfills a distinct need in the life cycle of our residents. And it meets the age-friendly community action plan, which encourages the development of facilities for residents to age in their own. Seeks to harness the continuum of care model, which is a contemporary standard in senior living facilities, which perhaps move in when they're still independent living, and as their age changes and perhaps their health changes, they're able to stay in the same community, the same building, if they need to move to an assisted care or to a full nursing care style of residence. The provided site plan is adapted to the conditions of the site, especially in respect to the single-family residences to the north. It is a low traffic generator due to the age of the residents. That is borne out here in St. Louis County, as well as it's a national standard that senior living facilities in general produce far lower vehicle trips than do standard residential developments. Additionally, the conditional use procedure does grant the county the ability to enforce higher standards for building, landscaping, lighting, and setbacks. So in terms of the site plan that's been provided, it is 1 new structure, 3 stories in height, and the existing 2-story structure shall remain. 200 existing units will remain, plus 115 new units for 315 total units. In the conditional use permit that was granted by the Planning Commission, the structure setbacks are greater than those that are required by the zoning ordinance. It is required that the structure would be 50 feet from the west property line in lieu of 10 feet, as would be required by the zoning ordinance, and 65 feet from the north property line in lieu of 15 feet of what the zoning ordinance would require. Additionally, the parking setbacks in the conditional use permit are greater than those required by the zoning ordinance. In the conditional use permit is 35 feet from the north property line in lieu of 10 feet, as would be required in a permitted R2 development. Landscaping requirements far exceed those of the zoning ordinance. The conditional use permit does require 4 trees and 5 shrubs planted per 20 linear feet along the north property line, whereas the zoning ordinance would require 2 trees and 4 shrubs. Additionally, a 4 to 6 foot high landscaped berm is required along the northern property line that is graded to be wide enough that plantings can be planted on both top of it, as well as down the sides of the landscape berm. Additionally, the lighting requirements exceed those in the zoning ordinance. Bollard-style lighting is required along the northern property line. That is to help mitigate any concerns of light seepage onto adjoining parcels of the single-family detached homes to the north. And illumination levels are required to be 0.0 foot candles when measured 10 feet south of the northern property line. That's in lieu of the standard in the zoning ordinance, which is 1 foot candle at the 0.1 foot candle at the property line. So the standards are more stringent in this conditional use permit than is required by the zoning ordinance. So this is a colorized was provided by the petitioner at after public hearing of this site as they are proposing it. You can see the existing structure will continue to exist. Currently, there is 1 connection onto Gravois Road that is here. If you can see my mouse circling it, they are proposing a 2nd entrance onto Gravois Road. Additionally, you can see the proposed structure. On the western side of the property. So this is zooming into the site. You can see that parking is provided to the east, south, and west of the site. However, no parking is permitted to the north of the site. And that drive aisle that you see to the north is going to be gated off and only would allow for emergency vehicles to use that drive aisle. The rationale behind that is to reduce any sorts of noise or light that could disturb the adjoining property owners. So you can see here the parking setback is 35 feet. The structure setback is 65 feet. Bollard lights only along the north, a fire access drive with gates, and an enhanced landscaping buffer with berm. And you can see that the existing structure that is already in existence at the site is approximately 55 feet at its closest point to the northern property line. So this building is a little bit farther set back than the existing structure even is. So any development in St. Louis County, stormwater is very critical to how things are developed. It should be noted that all stormwater plans must be reviewed and approved by MSD and St. Louis County engineering staff. MSD regulations do not allow for the development of a site to exacerbate stormwater issues on adjoining parcels. And this site will be subject to all MSD regulations, whether it is redeveloped with a permitted land use, such as a single-family dwelling, or a conditional use, such as a group home for the elderly. This will require, the site already has a dry detention basin on site, but that will be reviewed to make sure that it is still, after post-development, is appropriately sized for the site. And if any water is sheeting onto a parcel, the site design must continue to accept that sheeting water and direct it to an appropriately sized BMP or detention basin. What I'll note is that this site sits lower than all of the adjoining parcels. So this site actually has water that sheets onto it from all of the single family detached homes that are immediately adjacent to it. And because of that, we do not believe that there's going to be, this will not displace water that will create stormwater issues for any adjoining parcel. In fact, this site accepts stormwater from all of the parcels nearby. And it should be noted that public hearing, the petitioner did go with did work. The majority of the time is very low, and they will be piping that creek. They have already received engineering allowances to allow for this by the U.S. Corps of Engineers, and it will continue to remain in existence. It will just be piped down to an existing culvert where it will lead directly to their existing detention basin there on site. Additionally, it should be noted that this, in conjunction with an approval of the site development plan, the Planning Commission would approve architectural elevations for this project. The conditional use permit does require that all sides of this structure be treated equally. We put that in because we want to ensure that any sort of visibility of this structure from adjoining parcels, from the adjoining single-family residences, people don't feel like they're looking at the back of a building. Every side of the building should be treated equally. Additionally, no less than 25% of the facade shall be clad in brick or stone, and another 25% of the facade shall be covered in windows. In the absence of a CUP, no permitted development is required to provide architectural elevations. And at public hearing, the petitioner did provide these. These are pictures of a project that they recently completed in O'Fallon. So this is another senior living facility that they own and operate. So this is a similar style to what the new structure would be. And what I like about these pictures at the bottom is, in case you had any questions of what a bollard style lighting would look like, those lights that you see in the bottom two pictures, those are bollard style. They're intended for to be used by pedestrians only, and to be low lighting, only illuminating the ground. And so with that, that was the rationale for the Planning Commission's approval of the conditional use permit. And with that, we would welcome any questions.
Thank you very much. Councilman Fitch, do you have any questions?
Yes, ma'am. Jacob,
Please.
regarding the neighborhood.
Yes.
Regarding the neighborhood, you showed, if you could bring that picture back up, the site plan.
Sure.
And I just have a couple questions about the site plan. Okay, Jacob, during the public hearing, we heard, and I was in the public hearing to listen, from quite a few of the neighbors of the subdivision just to the north of those shrubs, as we see there, is the council members can see Those are individual single-family homes, and their property line would abut right up next to that shrubbery there that would be placed. Is that correct, Jacob?
Yes, so there are, I think, 7 or 8 of single-family detached properties that do abut where the new structure would be placed.
So today, when they stand in their backyard or on their back deck, they're looking out at what?
So what currently exists, it's largely undeveloped. There is one single-family detached home where you see the proposed structure. There is currently one home. Otherwise, the site is largely undeveloped. Trees. There is a clearing because there is a pipe easement that's immediately south of the proposed structure, but it is largely undeveloped at this point.
So during the public hearing, we heard from several of the neighbors that basically said, I'm going to look, today I'm looking at this, and if this is approved, I'll be looking at a 3-story apartment building. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, so if this does get approved and eventually developed, yes, there's a proposed to be a 3-story structure. There is the possibility that there will be some visual impact.
Could you scroll up, Chris, and we want to look at the south part of this site? Because I have a question for Jacob on that. So you see the pipeline going through there, and then
Yes.
keep going down, or keep going up, Chris, a little bit further. And that property there that says Jefferson County, that big
Yes.
piece of property just south of the pipeline, is that all owned by Delmar Gardens today?
So it is my understanding that yes, they do own that portion is a portion of property is located in the Jefferson County jurisdiction.
And do you remember any conversation with the Planning Commission about a possible alternative that they could build on that Jefferson County side instead?
With the Planning Commission, Debbie, there was conversation. There were concerns that they had looked at it. I know that the petitioner is here, so they can maybe speak to it more fulsomely. I do know that there were conversations about additional constraints that kept them from wanting to develop this on the Jefferson County side. After conversations, they said that they felt that the St. Louis County side was provided them the best opportunity to develop the sites in a way that they felt was met their needs the most. Most appropriately.
Just one last question for you, Jacob. Their current existing structure, 2 stories in height. The new structure,
Yes.
proposed structure, would be 3 stories in height. Was there any discussion as to why they were going to have these buildings that directly face these single-family homes be 1 story higher than their existing structure?
I think it was just a nature of how much property they have, and they have conducted, from what I understand, they have conducted studies. They have sort of looking at what is the projected future need for senior living in Southwest County, and they have received a certificate of need from the state. So they have done some research into what the market is, and I think that probably fit into the number of units that they needed, which then, with their property constraints, providing, getting that sort of meeting those need. And additionally, what I would say is because staff and the Planning Commission were concerned regarding the impact visually on the adjoining parcels is why we do recommend the higher standard for architectural review. All these sides be treated equally and there be much more dense landscaping.
Okay, and I said I had one last question for you, but I do have one more that I've just recalled. This piece of property, if I remember the conversation correctly, and that's why I'm going to ask you for help here, was purchased by Delmar Gardens after the subdivision was built immediately adjacent to it. Is that correct?
I do know that they have owned this property for a significant period of time. But the exact date of when it was purchased, I think I would defer to the property owner to answer that question for you.
Okay, that's all I have for the Planning Commission. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And those, hopefully the petitioner, as they make their presentation, they will address those questions that you have asked. We are ready now to move to the petitioners and their presentation. I would also like to add that I believe Councilwoman Clancy is on the call. Is that correct?
Yes, I am here. And if you don't mind, Madam Chair, I do have a question.
Oh, certainly.
Jacob, can you talk more about the alignment with this development and the age-friendly plan that you referenced?
So St. Louis County did adopt the age-friendly community, which is a guiding policy document that has input from multiple across county government. And the plan itself has a whole range of policy recommendations and interventions that it does sort of outline for ways to ensure that St. Louis County is a welcoming for residents of all ages, including seniors, and making sure that they're able to find residences that meet the needs as our health changes and as we get older. So the action plan, one of it is does look at some land use issues in addition to other policy issues. And it does make recommendations that these types of developments are going to be more common as the population ages, not only nationally, but St. Louis County is a little bit older than the nation as a whole. And so we take that very seriously about ensuring that we do meet those sort of policy guides. It's to create a diversity of housing options for older adults that are accessible, affordable, and low maintenance. Developments like this, in that if your home was built and it's got stairs or it has other sorts of issues, these types of developments can provide social connection by living with other people of the same age cohort, as well as providing a lot of accessibility.
Do we know more about if there are other similar facilities in this part of St. Louis County?
You know, this is the largest one in the general vicinity. I do know that as part of receiving a certificate of need, they do have to look at various sort of radiuses of of what is available in the general vicinity. The nearest one I would have to do a little bit of research on, but I do know that as part of receiving their certificate of need, they did have to show the state of Missouri that the state of Missouri and that they believe that there was a market and a need for this type of product in the general area.
Thank you. And then can you remind me how many homeowners are affected by the by the proximity of this development? So how many homes are right there to the north?
So immediately north of the site, there appears that there would be 7 homes that would be most notably affected. Their rear yards would abut seven single-family detached homes.
And that's part of a development. That's a subdivision. How many total homes are in that subdivision?
I would have to go and look. It was a fairly large subdivision. Well, 50 homes. I'd have to go and look at the approved plans at the time, but it's a fairly large subdivision.
Okay, I think I had heard in my preparation for this meeting, it was somewhere in the vicinity of like between 70 and 80. So I don't need to know the exact number. A ballpark is fine. And then and remind me how many units would be in this development?
So there would be 300. This would authorize 15 total units. Currently, the site is developed with 200, so this would permit an additional 115 units. 55 of them would be independent living, whereas the other 260 units would be a mixture of assisted living and nursing care.
And then my final question is there any, what's the financial impact of this development in terms of tax dollars?
You know, we do not typically conduct a tax analysis. It's just, you know, I do know at public what that petitioner may be able to more better answer than I could.
Okay, got it. I will save that. I will defer that question to the petitioner. Thank you so much. That's the end of my questions, Councilwoman Days.
Thank you. Thank you. We will now move to the petitioners. You have your presentation ready?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Brad Citron. I'm an attorney with Spencer Fain, and I represent Delmar Gardens. Joining me this afternoon are several Delmar Gardens representatives, including President and CEO Gabe Grossberg, Executive Vice President Howard Oppenheimer, Delmar Gardens in-house architect and project manager Ron Durker, and their regional vice president Karen Muckler. Also joining us are Ken Scheffler from Clayton Engineering, who is our civil engineer for this project, and Larry Millis and Sarah Wellman from Gray Design Group, who are the architects. All of these individuals will be available to answer questions at the end. As you're aware, this matter involves a request by Delmar Gardens to amend their existing conditional use permit to allow for the expansion of their existing Delmar Gardens of Meramec Valley Nursing Home, which, as Jacob pointed out, is a 200-bed skilled nursing home in South County. Delmar Gardens would like to expand the facility to include an additional 115 units, consisting of 60 assisted living units and memory care units, and 55 independent living villas. The additional 115 units would be contained in a new approximately $35 million three-story building located immediately adjacent to and to the west of the existing nursing home. The new building will be known as the Garden Villas of Meramec Valley. At this time, I'd like to introduce Howard Oppenheimer with Delmar Gardens, who will make some brief remarks. Howard, if you're ready.
Thank you. My name is Howard Oppenheimer. I'm Executive Vice President, Delmar Gardens Enterprises. Thank you for the opportunity to present our proposal to expand services to the senior community at Delmar Gardens, the Meramec Valley location. Delmar Gardens is a family-owned and operated company that was founded in 1965 and is headquartered in St. Louis County. We are honored to serve over 2,500 seniors in St. Louis County from all backgrounds, while passionately adhering to our company philosophy of love, care, and understanding. We are humbled that our staff members nominated us and we were selected by the St. Louis Business Journal's Best Places to Work in St. Louis Award in our category in 2007 and 2019. We take great pride in our facilities, many of which have garnered national recognition for architectural design, and we are deeply committed to our residents, our neighbors, and the community at large. Since purchasing the Meramec Valley site in 1999, we have always envisioned expanding our service to allow a full continuum of care to the community's senior population. In the ensuing years, things have dramatically changed as greater emphasis has been placed on minimizing the need for skilled nursing services as the needs of our senior population has continued to expand. While for many years, senior healthcare needs would have been met in long-term care skilled facilities, the market now demands they be met in a more residential setting. The Missouri Health Facilities Review Committee has concurred with us that there is a need for assisted living and memory care services at this location by granting us a certificate of need. The certificate of need will enable us to be licensed to provide a variety of services in a more residential, home-like setting. Site constraints have made this project a particularly difficult one, but we believe the proposal we are presenting today will allow us to deliver a state-of-the-art project. We appreciate many of our neighbors accepting our invitation to discuss this project several months ago. We have tried to address as many of their concerns as possible. We pledge to you and our neighbors that this project will be an enhancement to the community at large, and it has always been the heartfelt objective of the Delmar Gardens family to be an outstanding neighbor. We have reviewed the recommendations of the Planning and Zoning Commission and we are amenable to complying with all these recommendations. I'll now let Brian Citron provide more details about our proposed development, and we will be happy to answer questions you may have afterwards. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Howard. Okay, Chris, if you wouldn't mind, if you could put the aerial photo back on the screen, that would be helpful. I think that was the JPEG file that I sent. Jacob did a good job of explaining the surroundings, but I just want to point out a couple things about the aerial. Number one, the nursing home, again, it's a 200-bed skilled nursing home. It's actually located on 20 acres of land, but 4 of those acres are located in Jefferson County. The nursing home was built more than 30 years ago in 1987. And I think it's important to note that the residential subdivision of Arlington Glen, which is to the north and west, was built well after the nursing home in the 1993 to 1995 timeframe. Delmar Gardens purchased the property in 1999 with plans to expand almost immediately. But the site itself is an incredibly challenging site from a development standpoint. Part of the property is located in Jefferson County, again, so that it's controlled by 2 separate governmental jurisdictions. There's also a ConocoPhillips pipeline easement that runs east-west through the middle of the property, and on top of which no foundations or permanent structures can be built. There is also a creek running through the middle of the property, which needs to be relocated and buried as part of this project. And to that end, Delmar Gardens has been working with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for the past several years and received a permit and approval from the Corps last summer on June 10th, 2019 to do the creek relocation work in connection with this project. Chris, if you could put the site plan back up, the color site plan. Again, the new facility is shown on the left, on the west, or the left side. This will be, again, 115 additional units consisting of 60 assisted living and memory care units and 55 independent living villas. The total cost of the project, again, will be between $30 and $40 million. It'll be a first-class, state-of-the-art senior living facility that offers a full range of services and amenities, including a fitness and wellness facility, an indoor swimming pool, a bowling alley, beauty salon, an activities center, dining facilities, and transportation. It'll have a separate entrance on Gravois Road, as Jacob indicated. There will be more than 60 new jobs created at this facility. The jobs will be in the areas of nursing and dietary workers, wellness and activities staff, administration and sales, transportation, security and maintenance. There will be well over 200 construction-related jobs involving all trades created during the construction phase of this project. Delmar Gardens is not seeking any development incentives or any tax abatement in connection with this project. They have all their financing and funding in place currently, and they want to move forward with construction as soon as possible. We showed, I guess, you saw the photos earlier, so we don't need to show those again. That was just, those photos were conceptual based on a similar project Delmar Gardens completed not too long ago. Thanks for putting it up. But it gives you a sort of a general idea of the look and feel of the project. Again, this is senior living. It's not some kind of obnoxious, it's not a Walmart or something like that. As Howard indicated in his earlier remarks, there is a substantial need for assisted living, memory care, and independent living units at this location. Seniors are the fastest growing age population in the country, and there simply are not enough facilities located in this part of St. Louis County to meet the needs of seniors and offer the full continuum of care that is now considered essential in the senior living industry. The goal is to be able to offer a full range of living options and healthcare services that a person may need as they age, and to be able to do this on one campus in a manner that keeps family members together and without unnecessarily placing seniors into skilled nursing care because no other options are available. For these reasons, the state of Missouri granted a certificate of need to Delmar Gardens on March 5th, 2018 for this project at this location. It's important to note that Delmar Gardens has always had plans to expand this facility since acquiring the property more than 20 years ago. In 2004, they received approval from St. Louis County to develop a larger scale version of this project pursuant to CUP number 830. The earlier project involved an additional 225 units and 2 separate buildings, one located immediately adjacent to and to the west of the existing nursing home, and one running north-south across the jurisdictional boundary between St. Louis County and Jefferson County. Delmar Gardens did not proceed with that earlier project because of those challenges caused by the jurisdictional issues with Jefferson County, and also, more importantly, because of its inability to relocate the ConocoPhillips pipeline easement that runs right through the middle of the property. Delmar Gardens decided to postpone that project until it could acquire some additional land to the west so that the entire facility could be built and operated in St. Louis County. As Jacob mentioned, there's about 7 homes to the north of this property that are kind of most impacted. All but 3 of those homes would have been already backing up to the new facility that was approved in 2004. All of those homes can see the existing nursing home in one way, shape, or form today. We realize this, and Jacob, I guess at this point, if you could just put up the color site plan again, I think that might be helpful. We realize this project has been met with some resistance from certain neighbors who back up to the property, but I think it is important to emphasize that a significant amount of time and effort went into working with the planning department and developing a site plan that is consistent with sound planning practices and minimizes the impact on the neighbors to the north and the west. The building, as you can see, is oriented so that the main entrance and all trash loading areas, service areas, and deliveries will be in front of the building on the other side from the residences. There'll be no trucks, deliveries, garbage collection, or similar traffic in the rear of the property. We eliminated all parking along the northern section of the property and reduced the width of the rear access drive and made it a one-way drive. As a result, we were able to create a large landscape buffer in the rear of the property that is between 35 and 52 feet wide, and will allow us to plant a significant amount of trees, shrubs, and other landscaping in this buffer area for purposes of screening. We also added a significant landscape berm along the rear property line that'll be between 4 and 6 feet high and 8 feet wide at the top. This will allow us to plant trees on top of the berm to create an even higher, more substantial buffer, which will create additional privacy and minimize the impact and visibility of this project. There is no street or pole-mounted overhead lighting in the rear sections of the property, so no lights will be shining onto the neighbor's property. We also added a fence around the perimeter to provide additional privacy and screening and address any potential safety concerns. We designed the building to maximize the setbacks in the rear section of the property, with an average rear setback being approximately 82 feet. This is significantly greater than the required setbacks under the underlying zoning for this property. But aside from the design, it is also equally important to note that this is a senior living development. Senior living is typically the best neighbor you could ask for. Seniors typically go to bed early, they don't make a lot of noise, and there's very little traffic. It is very common to have this kind of development next to, and sometimes right in the middle of, residential subdivisions. In addition, this is a much less intense and a much less obtrusive development project than what was approved in 2004. In closing, the Garden Villas of Meramec Valley will be another outstanding first-class senior living project for St. Louis County, and it will be a substantial improvement and enhancement to the existing property. As the Planning Commission noted, the proposed use is reasonable and compatible with existing uses in the surrounding area, is consistent with good planning practices, and is also consistent with and supports the goals and priorities of the St. Louis County Age-Friendly Community Action Plan and the county's strategic plan and strategic framework as it relates to the goals of developing suitable housing that allows for residents to age in place. This concludes our presentation, and at this time, I'd open it up to any questions you may have about the project.
Brad, did you want the other shot, the other slide up?
No, that's okay. It's fine. I think Jacob put it up earlier, so we're good.
Okay, sorry.
Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you. Because I think you muted me, Chris. But are these market rate, will be market rate, a facility market rate?
Yes, I'm going to turn that over to Howard to answer the questions about the rates. But yes, they will be My understanding.
So these will not be subsidized in any way?
Howard, I'll let you answer the question.
To answer your question, these will be market rate.
Okay.
The
All right.
the nursing home does take Medicaid residents, but these will all be market rate.
Okay. And then this is, I guess, with your addition, this will be a sort of a seamless transition from one phase of the elderly to another, including, I guess, in the memory would be the Alzheimer's population. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you. Any other
Thank you.
questions from my committee members?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Absolutely. Councilman Fitch.
Thank you, ma'am. And I don't know if this is for Brad or Howard. The parcel in question that this piece of property, that this new building would be placed on, just to clear up something you said earlier, Brad, you purchased this piece of property, or Delmar Gardens did, after that subdivision was put in. Is that correct?
Delmar Gardens purchased the nursing home a couple of years.
That's not what I'm at. I'm not asking about when they purchased the nursing home. I'm familiar with when I knew the original nursing home there because I worked one of the cases there where one of the residents walked away and died in a ditch nearby. So I'm familiar with the property probably better than anybody else there. I'm talking about the piece of property that Delmar Gardens is wanting to develop into this 3-story apartment building. That was purchased after the subdivision behind it was built. Is that correct?
Well, part of it, Council Member Fitch, the bulk of it, Delmar Gardens was part of the original development for this nursing home. The building, there's some additional land, about 3 acres, that was acquired to the west solely because they couldn't proceed with the prior project because they couldn't fit the project on the site. So they acquired the additional land to the west, which is about 3 acres, and the new building will be partially located on that property and partially located on the existing property that was there since 1987, I believe.
Okay, so going back to Councilwoman Day's question, is Delmar Gardens a for-profit company?
Yes.
And give me an example of what the monthly cost would be for one of these units in this new facility?
Yeah, Howard, do you want to weigh in? I have some of this information here. Hold on a second here. We were estimating the independent living units would go for about $2,375 per month, up to approximately $4,000, depending on the number of units or the size of the units. The assisted living and memory care would be in the $3,200 range, and depending on the level of services and care, could go up to the $5,000 range.
Okay, and you mentioned multiple times in your presentation about the age-friendly plan that St. Louis County has. Part of that plan, the word affordable is in that plan. Do you think that this is affordable for most people in St. Louis County?
Howard, I'll let you answer that question. You're more familiar with the economics of the senior housing.
The short answer to your question is that, historically that we have found that the apartments, our retirement communities, are very affordable. You consider that with all the services that are provided, the cost is still maybe 60% or so of the cost of skilled nursing. And it becomes a very affordable option for people who are trying to avoid going into a nursing facility, but yet get some transitional care. Yeah.
Okay, but it is a for-profit company, correct?
We don't hear the councilman. So we couldn't hear the councilman.
That's okay. That's all I have, Councilwoman Days.
Councilwoman Clancy, do you have any questions?
I have no further questions.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that presentation. We'll now move to the, I believe there's a presentation from community member or community members.
Hi, I'm Christy Lyday, one of the homeowners in the Arlington Glen subdivision, actually one that borders to the north of the proposed development. And I just want to speak on behalf of the Arlington Glen subdivision today a little bit on our opposition to this request. So yes, as the Arlington Glen homeowners feel a little bit disadvantaged in the entire process. You know, we've only been involved in a couple meetings regarding this now. You know, we attended the meeting on October 14th and then this one today. But we haven't been involved in all the offhand side discussions and just it hasn't been very open communication as in regards to what the process is going to be. You know, we just ask that the council members kind of shoes a little bit, you know, think about yourself as a homeowner and if this proposed development was being proposed to be built in your backyard, and just kind of hear out some of our concerns. So we have met with Delmar twice during this this whole process, and that was only when they were prompted to meet with us by a county council person. Once was just before the Planning Commission public hearing, and then once just after the Planning Commission public hearing. You know, we were first informed about the proposed development when some of the bordering homeowners received a letter from the Army Corps of Engineers regarding the rerouting of the waterway. So it's just hasn't been real open communication. And each of the meetings have been to inform us of the plans, but never to really listen to our concerns or make any revisions to the plans based on any of our concerns. So Chris, if you could go to the next slide. This is just an example of the, I guess, the advertisement that was posted at the entrance of our subdivision for the first meeting with Delmar. As you can see here, it doesn't provide any detail on, you know, who did the sign, who we're meeting with, where the meeting's to be held. It really just kind of looks like an advertisement for the purchase, if you're interested in purchasing some condominiums or something. But since some of us had already received a letter from the Army Corps of Engineers, we knew what the meeting was about. Thanks, Chris. This is an aerial view of the proposed development that I think we've seen in some of the other presentations already. So you already know that the yellow piece is the existing nursing facility. The building circled there is the proposed new development. And I just want to speak to you a little bit about some of the vantage points from some of the bordering homeowners. I know in some of the other presentations, we've talked a lot about the homeowners that border to the north there, and you can see it's quite a few homes. But then there's also, on the left-hand side, some very impacted homeowners as well. So we're going to go through some of the views and kind of their vantage points of what they see today from their homes and what it will look like after the fact. So next slide, Chris. So this is from one of the homes on the left-hand side of that aerial view. This is looking up at the homeowner's yard or house. The proposed development would be to the left-hand side. I believe this is where the sewer would be rerouted. So essentially this hill, this large hill leading up to this homeowner's house would be removed with the proposed, would be some sort of, I don't know, retaining wall or something dropping off from his home. If you slide, Chris, this is a view looking down at the proposed development from that homeowner's. You can see here all these trees that are in the picture, those would be removed. And again, this hill would be removed. It'd be some sort of drop off looking down at the new proposed development. If you could go to the next slide. This is from that same homeowner's deck off his backyard. Again, this is the view that he has today from his home. The homeowner states this is the whole reason that he bought the home was for this view, this feel that he has sitting out on his deck that will essentially be gone if a proposed development's put there. All those trees will be gone. The gradually sloping hill will be gone. It'll be just a drop off retaining wall looking down at the rooftop of a new development. Air conditioners, dumpsters, whatever. You go to the next slide, Chris. Now kind of shifting gears to those homeowners that border to the north. This is the view from their homes today. I know I believe one of the council members asked, you know, what that land looks like today. This is what it looks like today. This view, this feel park-like setting, the wildlife, the openness. This is the whole reason my husband and I purchased our home several years ago. You know, we looked out, we come out to the house, we thought, oh yeah, it looks nice, it's got some decent curb appeal. We go in, it's nice. But then when we stepped out on the back deck and had this view, this is really what sold us on the home and had us put an offer on the home. If there was a 3-story, 24-hour, 7 days a week business operating back, we would not have even made an offer on the home. Slide. And this is a view from one of those neighbors bordering to the north of the proposed property. So this just gives you a feel for what it's like. You know, all the neighbors use their back decks today, sit outside. This is the view that we have. This is looking a little bit more eastward than in the prior view. This would be looking at essentially the parking lot and the most eastern portion of the new Delmar development, if it's placed there today. So the hill and all that's kind of off to the right-hand side here, just to give you perspective. And then this is the elevation plan for one of those homes bordering to the north that I think we received and took a picture of in one of the Delmar meetings. But you can see here we've added just some lines to the picture so that you can kind of see it in perspective or in relationship to the bordering homes. The development to the, oh, I don't know, but sorry, I've got children at home. Go down and ask Daddy, okay? You can see the main living floor of the home, if you follow the red line over to the left-hand side, meets up with the first or second story of the Delmar development. So that's, you know, in relationship, the main living quarters of the homes would be looking into about the second story of the Delmar development on average. And then the blue line represents kind of the views from the homeowners' backyards. So they'll be looking directly into the first story. And then we've just added a rooftop because that wasn't initially in the picture. So from the main living quarters of the homes, definitely the third story and the rooftop would be up above the homeowner's view, really just painting that picture of what it would look like. If you go to the next slide, just to summarize, the main floors would be looking into the second and third stories. And then I know after the initial meeting, the public hearing, Delmar came back and proposed to the homeowners that they would put in a berm and vegetation on top. But that's really not going to mitigate much of the visual impact for many, many years, probably decades by the time that vegetation grows up. The starting point's 20 feet below the main living quarters of these homes. So if you go to the next slide, Chris. So just to give you a feel for what it looks like from these homeowners bordering to the north today, you know, sitting outside, having a peaceful summer evening with all of the open green space behind their homes. And then if you go to the next slide, Chris. This is what it looks like today. Again, that picture. And then on the next slide, you'll see this will be the views going forward. So I don't know which view would you rather have. You know, I know personally I would not have purchased my home if this was sitting behind it today. If you go to the next slide, Chris. So up to this point, I've been speaking for the entire Arlington Glen subdivision, but now I want to add just a little personal aspect that has a huge impact for my family, and that's the health and well-being of my son with special needs. One of my sons has Down syndrome and autism, and you know, the backyard is really the place where he goes to regulate his sensory needs. He swings, he gets exercise for safety reasons in our backyard. And that's, you know, during a 2-year construction period, that's going to be very disturbing, frightening, and overwhelming to him, and essentially make our backyard unusable. And then even beyond that point, you know, ongoing, the proximity of this new development to our home is going to have a significant impact on him with traffic and just commotion, service, deliveries, all of those things that a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week business operating in your backyard would bring. You know, that has an impact on anyone, but it has a tenfold impact on someone with special needs. Next slide, Chris. So that kind of leads us into, you know, why build here? Why build in the middle of this subdivision of single-family homes that has all this negative impact to, I believe someone asked earlier how many homeowners, I believe it's like 134, 135 homes in the subdivision. When we could build, you know, further to the south, closer to Gravois Road, and, you know, still meet Delmar's ultimate goal of providing more living options for the aging population. The plans might have to be altered a little bit, but I think it's still probably possible. If you go to the next slide. So again, kind of, you know, what we were told was it's difficult enough to work with one county, let alone two. But what we really believe is Delmar chose the location in the middle of our subdivision because it's more marketable to their future residents. I mean, who wouldn't want to build in the middle of a single family subdivision and have a pond with a fountain and just really give that residential feel to the marketability for their future residents. If you go to the next slide, Chris. But that increase in marketability for Delmar really comes at the same decrease in marketability and residential feel for the existing Arlington Glen homeowners. I mean, it's going to significantly impact the resale value of our homes. As you can see from the pictures and everything that I've explained to you, you know, all the residential feel and the reasons that we all bought our homes. And just don't feel that those impacts can be mitigated in any appreciable way as long as that building is built in that location. It's just simply too close to the existing homes. So if you go to the next slide, Chris. So just to kind of summarize all of those negative impacts to the Arlington Glen homeowners, we've got all the construction and noise during this lengthy construction period, the ongoing loss of privacy, the significant decrease in property values and marketability of, you know, our homes if we were ever to sell them, the ongoing light and noise pollution. I know Delmar has reduced down the lighting to shorter lights, but I worked in a nursing facility when I was in college, and you've got ambulances in and out at all hours of the day. You know, how many employees in and out, visitors. So there's still quite a bit of traffic comparatively to what's back there now. And then obviously the visual impact from both not only the homeowners on the north side, but also the homeowners on the other side of the development that I showed you, just being dominated by those buildings. And then just the loss of the park-like setting. So, you know, a lot of what we've been talking about is the bordering homeowners, but it really impacts all of the homeowners in this Arlington Glen subdivision because the common ground also borders to the side of this new development, and the pond, all of that's common ground. And, you know, lots of the homeowners fish, sit on the park benches, walk dogs, and all of that park-like feel will be lost when there's a 3-story, 24-hour-a-day, 7 days a week business operating there. So if you go to the next slide, Chris. So just in summary, as you can see, there's a huge, I mean, just huge, significant negative impact to the Arlington Glen homeowners. This proposed development, well, we call it, you know, residential living. It's, you know, also got more than half memory care and nursing units. It's just not compatible with a single family home subdivision and has no place being built in the middle. We do have, if the committee members haven't received it already, I believe someone will be sending you, maybe our trustees, a petition that's been signed by 68 homeowners in the subdivision who are opposed to the development. And we just don't believe that an alternate location, the land owned further to the south, closer to Gravois Road, has really been adequately explored and vetted or explained to the homeowners. We're just told that we can't build there, but you know, it may take some modifications, it may take a little work, but I think it's possible. So if you go to the next slide, Chris, you know, I think something similar, a similar plan, maybe not the exact same plan, could fit on that land that's closer to the Gravois roads. So we just asked that Delmar explore this a little bit more, or at least explain in detail with proof of why a similar sized nursing facility couldn't be built in that area. I mean, the amended CUP was called for a much larger facility that a smaller one could work. I know there's the issues with the pipeline, but I think if you orient the building just right and the parking and everything, that it could work, because the existing nursing facilities parking and driveways run over the pipeline, so that's clearly permissible. So I want to thank you for your time today. I have confidence that the committee members understand our concerns and put yourself in our shoes, and would just really consider not approving the CUP as it stands today until the alternate location is looked at in a little bit more detail and put a little bit more work into that, because then ultimately you can mitigate the concerns from the Arlington Glen homeowners, and you can also meet Delmar's ultimate objective of providing more living options for the aging population. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Christy, for your presentation. Any questions from the committee members? Okay, thank you so much. We will now move, and I believe, I'm not sure how many public comments we have, Diane, so we will start at 2:05 now. So let's see how many we can quickly get into the record for you reading. If for some reason we cannot get all of them, we cannot read all of them today, they will be part of the record going forward. So Diane?
Yes, Madam Chair. We have 15 comments this afternoon. The
Okay.
first comes from Charles Struckvis. First, Delmar Gardens has been a great neighbor for the past 17 years. They have hosted countless community events and spectacular fireworks we have enjoyed for years. The expansion project by Delmar Gardens is the first concern I have ever had living in Arlington, Glen. We are nestled in a very special part of Fenton, where even though we are a few minutes from shopping, on any given night you can walk outside and take in the peace and quiet. I had a friend visit me from St. Louis City, and as we walked around, he couldn't get over how quiet it was. The impact of a facility, the large crammed into an area neighboring residential homes, is extremely invasive. It's one thing for homeowners to be aware and know if they are moving into homes next to an existing Delmar Gardens. It's another to have systematically purchase property surrounding their property and expand. I am sure they have purchased properties and land at other locations to prevent subdivisions or commercial developments. When you are a resident living in a subdivision where your property is limited to less than a half acre and the square footage of your home, you don't have the opportunity to purchase a buffer around you. I am sure Delmar hired the best engineers and developers. Please revisit this expansion with those intelligent men and women and place this huge state-of-the-art facility in another area of the property. The homeowners recognize and appreciate the community Delmar has brought to the area. Please continue to build that community, being good neighbors, and stop pursuing this particular expansion at this site. I ask the decision-making body of planning and zoning to consider this large development being put behind your home in your backyard. So often, especially in today's political environment, people feel abandoned. They feel they don't have a voice. We have been given a voice to express our concerns. Please hear our voices. The precedent this will set for homeowners in St. Louis County is one that will open the floodgates for businesses to purchase residential property and expand relentlessly, backing right up to residential property. This is so much bigger than one Delmar Gardens and one subdivision in St. Louis County. Please do the right thing and don't approve this plan. From Ivan and Shelby Nobles, we are residents of Arlington Glen and oppose the Delmar Gardens expansion near our neighborhood. We feel the plan will cause too much environmental damage, as it calls for the removal of many trees, the grading of a hill, and the rerouting of a creek. Lack of trees allows a greater amount of greenhouse gases to be released into the atmosphere. One tree can clean toxic emissions from the dirty air exhausted of an average car being driven 4,000 miles and keep our air more breathable by removing the same carbon dioxide and pollutants. Trees keep soil in place, and water from running off the land too quickly, and help control floods. Increased paved parking areas also lead to increased rainwater runoff as the water is not absorbed into the soil. This increases the risk of flooding, which is already a problem for the greater St. Louis area. Benton has been particularly impacted in recent years, with the area nearly cut off due to major roads and highways being flooded. In addition to contributing to worsening climate conditions, the development of this area will also destroy natural habitat for wildlife and marine life. We also don't feel there is a need for the expansion. In a June 4th, 2020 St. Louis Business Journal article, Delmar Gardens CEO Gabe Grossberg stated, quote, occupancy at Delmar facilities is down 13% and currently running at about 75%, end quote. The article also said, quote, another factor affecting occupancy in the industry's recent building boom. While national occupancy in senior living housing had only grown by a small amount leading up to the pandemic, that was mostly due to an influx of new construction, which was growing by leaps and bounds. In 2012, about 5,000 independent living units were under construction in U.S. primary markets, the NIC reported. That number ballooned to about 20,000 units in late 2019, and Grossberg himself said, quote, the St. Louis market is possibly overbuilt, end quote. In summary, we believe this expansion will negatively impact the environment by destroying green space, removing trees, endangering wild and marine life habitats, increasing flood risk, erosion, adding emissions from increased traffic, increased garbage and energy usage. We also agree with the CEO of Delmar Gardens. The St. Louis market is overbuilt. There is not a need for this expansion. Thank you for your time and consideration. From Kirk and Libby Dykema. Any plan Delmar proposes for this particular building spot is problematic in that the proximity to homeowner properties is dictated by the topography and pipeline. The buildings cannot be moved appreciably further from the homes than they are in the existing location, and the elevation differences between many homes and the proposed development means that there will always be considerable visual impact to those homes. Early, this impact will be substantial, with home living levels being on par with the second and third stories of the development. Changes made by Delmar following the Planning Commission meeting only nominally address the visual impact of the finished project. None of the changes address the effects of construction, which they estimate as 2 to 2.5 years, during which many homes will be greatly affected and during which those homes would be largely unsellable. Nor do the changes address the negative impact on home values, both to those homes immediately adjacent and by extension to other homes in the neighborhood due to comparable sales values. The most impacted homes paid lot premiums to the developer due to their unobstructed nature views, which will be lost should this development proceed. Also, we feel Delmar has approached this project in an uncollaborative fashion and been less than forthcoming about why they insist on building in this spot. They clearly could have anticipated homeowner opposition, but made no proactive attempts to address that. Their approach feels disingenuous, like they hoped to push this through despite or around homeowner opposition because they think they can, or hoped we wouldn't notice until it was too late. It remains very unclear why Delmar is unwilling to build closer to Gravois, away from the homes and neighborhood. There appears to be ample land available, and that area is more suitable than the plan situated very close to the neighborhood. The explanation that it is too hard to work with multiple counties doesn't make sense, given the subdivision was built across 2 counties. They may need to adjust their plan to fit the topography closer to Gravois and constraints of the pipeline, but that doesn't make it impossible to do. We remain strongly opposed to this development given its placement and impact on the neighborhood. It should be placed closer to Gravois and further from the neighborhood. From Michelle Snyder. My husband and I have been blessed to have purchased our dream home on a premium lot at 934 Arlington Glen Drive 23 years ago. We have enjoyed the quiet neighborhood, the association and their policies, the upkeep of everyone's property, and the community we have grown to love. We have a premium lot that we paid extra for because it encompasses not only the beauty of the pond, but the wooded area that attracts the wildlife that surrounds it. When we heard of the expansion of the Delmar Gardens nursing home, we were devastated. Why would they allow this expansion to encroach on a residential area and take away all of the beauty that these lots were sold for in the first place? We paid a premium for peacefulness and beauty, wooded tree lines, and a beautiful pond that reflects the sunlight and the moonlight. Now that reflection of the moon will be replaced by the reflection of a 3-story building. Would anyone that owns Delmar Gardens pay a premium for such a view? So much for the premium lot. How willing is a future buyer going to be when they have to look at this view? Has Delmar Gardens given any consideration to using the acreage that is in front of their facility? There would be little to no effect on our property value or the aesthetic beauty surrounding our homes. The committee must understand our concerns about our property values. It isn't the right thing to do at all. Why would your residents want to be looking into our home windows or the reverse situation? There has to be a better way. It doesn't say much about the hearts behind those running a nursing home if they would choose to do this to many people's property values and lives. This seems very unethical. I pray that they reconsider the placement of this eyesore. From Spencer and Crystal Lynn Miller. We do not approve of the proposed expansion plan. The Delmar Gardens expansion has our household concerned because of the 2 main factors: increased traffic and decreased property values. The traffic making a left-hand turn off Summit onto Gravois Road is already very dangerous. The traffic backs up on Summit, causing a significant jam. I have witnessed 4 accidents here since we moved into the subdivision in May 2016. Delmar Gardens' rebuttal to this claim is that these individuals do not own cars. The residents may not have cars, but the relatives, friends, and additional staff to serve at this facility do. Thus, their expansion will cause additional traffic at a very dangerous and unstable intersection. Property values. Our house is not adjacent or located very close to the Delmar Gardens proposed expansion site. However, we have a vested interest in not seeing this expansion happen because it will lower property values in the neighborhood. Delmar Gardens representative made a laughable comment during our subdivision meeting saying our properties will increase. She had no data to back the statement up. Our neighborhood currently has a quick turn rate for selling houses. Young families like mine will think twice about moving into a neighborhood that backs up to such a large nursing home complex. The Delmar Gardens property currently blends in well with the surroundings. The proposed expansion will be an eyesore for the neighborhood. We do not want the proposed expansion to be approved. From Tim Majors. I am writing to express my concerns regarding the expansion of Delmar Gardens of Meramec Valley, Inc. I am asking you to exercise its power of review and deny this conditional use permit to the County Council. I am a direct impact at 852 Arlington Glen Drive. Per the architect's drawing, my bedroom window is 153 feet from Delmar's 3-story building rising from my beautiful backyard. This property was a premium purchased lot. This is zoned residential and the expansion is unsuitable for our area. Reasons are home value depreciation, especially with construction taking 2 to 2.5 years to complete as of their last meeting. Delmar will be responsible for a massive cutting of trees resulting in a loss of wildlife. This creates noise and dirt pollution from the massive excavation. The building design is visually incompatible with existing homes, while construction will impact the environment substantially. There have been issues controlling our hydraulic flow, and we need to access our dam. Because of limited space, Delmar Gardens' expansion will have to control all water totally underground. This water is from our existing subdivision ponds, a creek that constantly flows, a rock hillside that always has water flow. Water will be controlled with 6-foot diameter pipe and is 90 feet long. I know this will have to have buried water retention areas of equal size. This is a dangerous, massive confined space running our property lines and is wrong for the middle of a residential subdivision. The building will have a prefab design that does not match the surrounding homes. See Delmar, O'Fallon, Missouri. All with a 3-story view to my bedroom window. In closing, when you Google memory care centers around Fenton, Missouri, a senior advice website features over 20 memory care communities serving the Fenton area. This does not include the huge expansion of Friendship Village. Please do not let this expansion destroy the natural beauty that Arlington Glen subdivision has enjoyed. Delmar Gardens has placed their building in front Delmar Gardens can place their building in front, paralleling the outer road, albeit new design. Paying taxes in 2 counties might not be a bad thing if memory care is really that big a business. COVID-19 made homes tough to sell. Now this. Please save our subdivision. From Raymond and Nancy Feasy. The proposed Delmar Gardens construction will exacerbate daily noise construction we already experience from a landscaping firm on the outer Gravois Road on the Jefferson County side of the subdivision. The constant beeping, banging, and scraping of graders and backhoes can be heard inside our houses and can be heard loudly already now from the homes directly behind the proposed Delmar expansion site just down the road on the South St. Louis side. Our trustees say, and a check of the Jefferson County noise ordinances confirm, there is no recourse to address noise from an established business. I'm sure it's the same with St. Louis County. Think about it. At least 2 years of construction noise all day, 5 to 6 days a week from a Delmar expansion heard inside your home. During the pandemic, people are working from home and need to focus, not to mention the right to enjoy the safety and refuge a home can provide from the chaos of these times. And when the construction stops, we will hear more ambulance sirens from a large Delmar Gardens. I took a stroll recently to the proposed site with my dog through the quiet pastoral meadow. As I drew near the back service drive of Delmar Gardens, I could see and hear service trucks driving back there, the sight and smell of dumpsters, and the laughing, the chatter, and smoking of the Delmar Gardens staff on their breaks behind the building, all seen in plain view now from the backyards from several of our subdivision homes. The expansion will pose this same problem for many more homeowners, not to mention bright night lights beaming into bedroom windows. Finally, the expansion's increased traffic would add to the monthly accidents we already have at Highway 30 and Summit's oddly configured 6-way intersection, which is near the main entrance to Delmar Gardens. The proposal to add additional entrances along Outer Gravois are right at a blind hill, risking further crashes along that stretch with cars racing at 50 to 60 miles per hour. I am tired of dodging shards of glass and metal at that intersection and seeing vehicles in ditches along Outer Gravois. I ask the Council to carefully weigh the values of civic progress against the permanent changes their expansion would bring, and to think about what you value in your home. Madam Chair, I'd like to just say for the record, the public commenter also included an audio file which was submitted to the committee members. From Walt and Linda DeVillis. We strongly oppose the proposed Delmar Gardens expansion. We are the original owners of Lot 30, Arlington Glen subdivision, and we chose and paid a premium for our lot because of the privacy and beautiful views of the pond and trees. Upon completion of the proposed expansion, we will lose the trees to the left of the pond next to the dam, and our views will be looking at a 3-story structure. Our lot is also one of the lowest lots in the subdivision, with a storm sewer drain in the corner of our property draining into the pond. We have an in-ground swimming pool, and we are concerned the expansion could cause future issues with water overflow of the pond backing up the storm sewer and flowing into our pool. I believe Delmar Gardens owns property in Jefferson County to the west of their current facility, with no homes surrounding that property, so it would make sense to build the expansion on that piece of property. Also, regardless of what we are being told by Delmar Gardens, if the expansion happens, there will be a decrease in property value, especially for the homes backing up to the expansion. Arlington Glen subdivision homeowner impact of proximity includes construction noise, dust and dirt, loss of privacy, decreased property value, significant reduction in marketability or possibility of sale, ongoing light and noise pollution, visual impact dominated by new buildings. I have attached 2 photos, which they are in the record, and also sent to the committee members. One photo of the beautiful view from our deck currently, and the other photo would be the view if the Delmar Gardens expansion happens. Thank you for your time, and Arlington Glen homeowners appreciate your consideration for opposition of the Delmar Gardens expansion. Madam Chair, how are we doing on time?
We are at 2:23. So how many do you have left?
I think I have 7 left.
7 times 3 is 21 minutes. We're going to be close.
Okay.
So carry on. Thank you.
All right. From Bonnie Schreiber, purchased my home in Arlington Glen because it was a nice, quiet, well-kept neighborhood and because of the beautiful common grounds, including wooded areas and a pond. I have enjoyed the wildlife, especially the deer families and the hummingbirds, cardinals, woodpeckers, and bluebirds. These are the reasons I would be against the expansion of Delmar Gardens of Meramec Valley. Too much noise and disruption for the neighborhood. From Christine Beato. My house is across the street from the retention pond in Arlington Glen. I'm opposed to the Delmar Gardens expansion for the following reasons. 1, this expansion will directly hurt the property values of the houses which border it and thereby have a negative impact on the property values of every house in our subdivision. 2, our neighborhood already has issues with water drainage and underground springs. Many homes have sump pumps that run 24 hours a day. There is concern that construction changes will have further impact on water drainage in our neighborhood. Number 3, disruptions to the land during construction, namely digging or blasting, can ripple through the surrounding ground and damage the foundations of our residential homes. Number 4, the construction noise will be a 2-year nuisance. Number 5, the continued noise of operating a commercial healthcare facility, traffic, trash, and emergency vehicles will forever blight our peaceful residential community. Number 6, the proposed building is a huge eyesore that will dwarf our residential properties. Number 7, Delmar has other options. They could place the building closer to the frontage road and not push it up against our residential community. I respectfully ask your committee to consider our concerns and defend Arlington Glen subdivision from the Delmar Gardens corporate giant who threatens the peace and safety of our little community. I know the investments we've made in our homes is a pittance to Delmar Gardens, but it represents the life savings of us little guys. Please don't let Delmar disregard and destroy our community. From Jenny and Jason Ferguson. We are very much in support of the building garden villas of Meramec Valley. Both sets of our parents are at the age where they may need independent assisted living at any time. All 4 of our parents do live out of town, Washington, Missouri, and Sparta, Illinois. So having a facility with such a great reputation as Delmar Garden so close to us is very comforting, especially for me since I am an only child and will be the primary caregiver for my parents. If and when the time comes, I will want them close to me and my family in a facility where I know they will get everything they need. From Edward and Christina Phillips. I am an elementary school principal and my husband is a high school teacher. We moved into our new home December 2019. We had finally found our dream home. We made many sacrifices to afford this home, a home in a wonderful school district that we are proud to have our children grow up in. Our main concern with the Delmar expansion is the safety of our children. Our backyard would be backed up to a large parking lot. I would not feel comfortable having my children play outside alone with people in and out of the area. In a typical neighborhood, you would have a house behind you and you would get to know neighbors and build trust. A parking lot leading to a large facility will have visitors and workers that we will have no connection with. In addition to the finished product, my children will not be able to play in the backyard during construction. We will have to endure dust, loud noise, and construction for months or years if this project is approved. This is a safety concern for my family. I beg you to explore other options. The one thing that my children have learned during this pandemic is how to leave video games and play outside again. We have built a fire pit in the backyard, bought an outdoor movie projector, and tons of yard games. It is amazing to see so many kids playing in backyards again. As an educator, I can attest to the importance of outside play and the social emotional health of children. Please don't take this away from my family. Thank you for taking the time to read my thoughts. From Chris and Natalie Eves. As residents of Arlington Glen neighborhood, we wanted to voice our opposition to the proposed rezoning of residential property and expansion of the Delmar Gardens facility located at 1 Arbor Terrace, Benton, Missouri 63026. We feel strongly that the construction of multi-level buildings and corresponding parking lots directly bordering our neighbors' backyards will severely affect the overall atmosphere of our quiet and park-like neighborhood. Our family loves this neighborhood and utilizes the common ground to take walks with our children and enjoy the sights and sounds of the lake and the surrounding wildlife. If the proposed rezoning and expansion is approved, this will dramatically change the current lifestyles of the families in this neighborhood. Disrupting the peaceful environment of our small and quiet neighborhood would surely be unfortunate. Furthermore, the construction of this proposed facility will lower our property values. This will impact each and every resident in a negative way, economically speaking. We, along with our neighbors, pride ourselves on the quiet, well-maintained, and sought-after community in which we currently reside. Families frequently seek out homes for sale in our neighborhood. We are concerned that that will no longer be the case if this proposition is approved. Finally, we ask you to carefully consider these things as you review this case. After all, the residents in this neighborhood and in all of District 3 deserve your due diligence and care in making this decision. We appreciate your honorable service to this county and for taking the time to read and consider our opinion. 2 more, Madam Chair. Should I continue?
229, yes, ma'am.
From Colleen Mueller. To whom it may concern, throughout these last few months, my 2 daughters, 3 and 1, and I have walked our neighborhood at least 80 times. We have walked every possible route available and explored our surroundings. When I heard Delmar Gardens planned to expand, I couldn't even picture how or where they would be able to fit a building, much less a senior living facility that has workers and guests coming daily. Yesterday, I saw the plans and was saddened. The building isn't just big, it's intrusive in such a small lot. It intrudes into the Arlington Glen Lake, where we like to sit and hope to one day fish, enjoying the bit of nature surrounded by homes. It intrudes on neighbor homes and backyards, which they have evening dinners with their families. Allowing the small lot to be rezoned would have adverse effects to everyone in the neighborhood, from decreasing home values, the amount of staff and guests coming and going in our backyards, the large building towering over homes, and the construction noise. I cringe every time the trash truck comes during nap time and fireworks boom after 8, praying my kids stay asleep. I know that will be what I think about the entire time the building is being constructed. I also feel for my neighbors who moved into their homes knowing the land in question would never hold a building, only to be told that it's a possibility if they don't show cause for it not to be. I am worried about my home value with a building going up that can be seen from the main street in our neighborhood. Please don't allow this land to be rezoned and the building to go forward. Please think of the families in this neighborhood who call this home. Please know the Delmar Gardens can choose other locations to build that have been zoned for buildings this large. Thank you for your time. And our final comment this afternoon is from Cynthia Sikorsky. I have been thinking about this message to you for some time, unsure of how to convey how much this expansion affects me and our subdivision. I keep coming back to just speak from the heart. I have no engineering background to support my comments. I will leave that to the engineers. But I do know how I feel. I am very angry that my home is now going to have a 3-story building sitting on top of it, that the value of my home will depreciate, that we will have a 30-foot or more retaining wall on top of another family's home. How can that be okay? I am not faulting Delmar Gardens for wanting to expand. They have that right. They also have a lot of property other than on top of us. The only explanation they gave us for not building there was it is a nightmare trying to deal with 2 counties. I am sure it can be done, so do the right thing, all of you. Please think about the homeowners. We all have great pride in our homes and want it to be a place that others want to live. I am sure that is what you want for the county as well. We don't want the subdivision to be downgraded, and neither should you. I know there has to be alternatives to building on top of our homes. There has to be. Don't let this be another company pushing out the little guy. Sincerely. That's all the public comments, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Diane. I really appreciate that, that you have to read that, but that's
You're very
the way we
welcome.
have to do it. Thank you. All right, we are now to the point where we will have discussion and recommendations from the members of the committee. Is there any discussion at this particular point?
Madam Chair, if I may.
Absolutely.
Since this is in unincorporated St. Louis County, the 3rd council district, my council district, I'd like to make a few comments and observations. We are the municipality for this area. These residents of Arlington Glen, as well as Delmar Gardens, rely on us to make this decision. It's not a municipal decision, so it is our decision, even though just one council person represents this area, much like we heard Councilman Tracus yesterday describing his responsibility in District 6. So my feeling is, after hearing from Delmar Gardens, hearing from the residents of the area, and there was one comment that I must point out from the Fergusons saying that their parents are getting older and they look forward to having them nearby. They do not live in Arlington Glen subdivision, so they would not be impacted by these decisions. I believe, like many of the residents, that there are viable alternatives. That the only explanation I've heard for not wanting to also be involved in building on the Jefferson County side is because there are jurisdictional issues. Well, anytime you build over a property line like Pacific is in St. Louis County and Franklin County, certainly there are different issues there. River City Casino in South County, that property is partially in the city of St. Louis and partially in St. Louis County. So to say that that's not possible to work these out, I think a better explanation would be if Delmar Gardens would say, we don't want to work with Jefferson County, we'd rather just work with St. Louis County. And I get that, I really do. I think Delmar Gardens is an upscale facility. If you've ever been in one, they have a lot to be proud of what they do there at Delmar Gardens, and I will not take that away from them. However, this is not what I would describe as affordable housing, as we've heard in the age-friendly plan. This is a commercial apartment building being built into a neighborhood, is how I see it. And it is about the money. This is a for-profit company. It's about the money. I understand that. I'm not against companies making money. However, I do believe, like the residents, there's a viable alternative with that Jefferson County piece of the property. So that's my discussion, and if there's any other discussion, and then I would make a motion after, if there's any discussion from any other committee members.
Councilwoman Clancy, do you have anything to say?
I guess I would like to ask the folks from Delmar Gardens to respond more directly to the question about why not the other piece of the property.
Is there anyone that is that? Was it Bruce?
Brad.
Brad.
Yeah, I'm happy to take that up. We addressed that in our presentation. Again, they attempted to do that. There's not enough land to do it there, and with the pipeline, and it just doesn't work. This is why they went ahead and acquired the additional 3 acres. And they do want it to be in St. Louis County, and they believe this is going to be a great use of the property. So they attempted to do that, and it's not feasible. That's the main reason. We think this is a great use for the property, and we think that Delmar Gardens, most of these homeowners, we do understand and appreciate there's a change of scenery potentially for a few of these homes. Well, there will be a change of scenery for a few of these homes, no question. But that property that that they're looking out to belongs to Delmar Gardens and has, in most cases, for longer than those homeowners have owned their homes. They bought property that frankly is zoned for this with a conditional use permit. The R2 district does allow for this. It allows for the 3 stories. And frankly, with the way Delmar Gardens takes pride in their building and their facilities and their landscaping and everything that's being done to screen this, it's going to be beautiful. It's not going to be a diminution in value to these homeowners, even though I understand their concern. It's also not going to be a 2.5-year construction project. It's about, we're estimating 18 months. And again, the vast majority of these homes that we're talking about already back up to the existing nursing home, which predated the whole subdivision. So we understand, we appreciate it, and know that there's some angst, but this is not going to be a problem. And it's not a commercial, it's a residential use. So that's, really, I guess, the best way to respond to the question.
Thank you.
Anything else,
Clancy?
Councilwoman Clancy?
Well, and I guess I wanted to ask Ms. Lyday, it sounds to me like your biggest concern, and the biggest concern that I heard from the folks who spoke out against it during the public comment, is the view. You prefer to have the trees and the sort of the undeveloped space in your view on your property. There were some other concerns too, but that was the one that I think I heard the loudest. Is there a yes if for you? So you just heard the explanation, which is very reasonable to me, about why they want to put it on this part of the property. Is there a yes, you can put it on this part of the property if for you? Is there a compromise here? Or is this just a no-go?
Personally, for me, it's a no-go. I mean, it's definitely not just the view. I think I explained, with my son, it's the commotion, the noise, the loss of privacy. You've got, what was it, 155 people now looking at me in my backyard, in my hot tub, on my deck. And a huge concern for me personally, for my son with special needs. I mean, it is going on. I understand that the residents are elderly and probably quiet, but you've got 60 plus employees, deliveries, ambulances, trash trucks, everything going back there. I think what I heard, it's not feasible, but I guess I don't have the evidence or the proof or the explanation as to why it's not feasible. Other than
okay, but my question was sort of, is there a yes if for you at that particular location on the site? And you said no. It's either this or that. Okay, that's what I need to know. Thank you.
Sure.
Madam Chair, if I could just follow up on Councilwoman Clancy's request.
Certainly.
So I think you heard Brad, Mr. Citron, say it just doesn't work. I don't know what that means. It just doesn't work. It sounds to me like, does that mean we don't want to spend the money to make it work? What does that mean? I think the homeowners deserve a better answer than it just doesn't work. So what does that mean? And until we hear some explanation or see some explanation, I just cannot be in favor of this project. Because, by the way, I think talking to many of those residents, especially the ones that back up immediately to there, I asked the exact same question that Councilwoman Clancy asked. What would be okay for you back here? And most of them said, we have no problem with single family residences being back here on this property, or 1-story buildings being back here on the property. Most of their issues were 3-story buildings now at the immediate back of their property line. That's what I heard from the residents as I went and met with the residents and stood on their porches to try to visualize what they would be looking at.
Thank you. Brad, do you want to respond to that?
Sure. I guess which part of it? I guess the question about, again, there's the reason we're going through this is because they went through the whole process and spent a ton of time and money and engineering. They did a whole bunch of analysis. You know, you do have setbacks. So if they put this building in the Jefferson County portion, again, they only have 4 acres. And part of that is encumbered by a pipeline easement. Part of that's encumbered by setbacks, you know, and you have access and everything else. So they just don't have all of that property to build over the property line, you know, like we talked about, or the jurisdictional line. The biggest issue was the pipeline. But again, this building's, we discussed it during our presentation. It's not going to be right on the property line. It far exceeded all the setbacks. And it's a, you know, we're making this sound like it's the, you know, we're building like a Top Golf or something in the back of these neighbors' properties. The reality is the zoning permits 3 stories. It's a 3-story building. We didn't discuss this in our presentation today, but the Planning Commission took note of this, that we did a lot of analysis about the size of the building, and it's really, if you look at the floor area is the basement floor areas, the topography of the subdivision is such that it's higher than the Delmar Gardens property. So the subdivision sits up on a little bit of a hill or a bluff or whatever you want to call it. And frankly, the vast majority of the homes in the subdivision can't even see this property. But regardless, the basement floor levels on the homes are on average 10 to 12 feet higher than the first floor level of this building will be. So although I appreciate that, you know, you could stand out on the porch and look, you can't really tell what's going to happen unless you see the grading plan and everything else for the property. But it really is going to look and feel like more like a 2-story building to the homeowners behind the property. And again, we're putting a berm in, we're putting all this landscape buffer in, and it's a beautiful building that Delmar Gardens takes incredible pride in. And we're going to be going through architectural review. And at the end of the day, you know, the scenery is going to change. We get that, and we understand that. But again, this is Delmar Gardens property, and it's a very reasonable and fair plan that they've proposed. And this is this is where they want to locate the building. This is where they need to locate the building to make it work. So
thank you so much. Any other questions, discussions? Because at this particular point, I need to entertain a motion from the committee members. Anyone with a motion?
Madam Chair.
Certainly.
Madam Chair, I know that this committee just makes a recommendation to the full county council.
Mm-hmm.
So my recommendation would be that this committee deny this CUP to the full county council.
That is your motion?
That is my motion. Yes,
do you have a second? Motion fails for lack of a second. Is there another motion? Is there another motion that we have?
I believe we need some kind of motion to.
We have to have some kind of a motion to move forward.
I actually think that's adequate because let me look at the statute or at the ordinance. Well, actually, you could make a motion that would affirm the Planning Commission's recommendation to the council.
But I think that was his motion, was to deny approval.
Yes.
Right.
And that motion died for lack of a second. And so what is the position now?
I think if there's a council member who wishes to make a motion to affirm the Planning Commission's recommendation, that's a potential motion.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to affirm the Planning Commission's recommendation on this development.
Okay, and that will need a second, which I will do. Is that appropriate, Jen?
Yes, ma'am.
All in favor,
well,
please say aye.
I'm sorry. The motion would be to recommend that to the full council.
Correct. That is to approve the CUP for approval or recommendation to the council as a whole. Excuse me. Is that correct?
Yes, I think just to restate for the record, I think the motion, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think the motion that Councilwoman Clancy has made is to recommend to the full council to affirm the Planning Commission's recommendation to approve the CUP.
That is correct, and that was my second. Yes?
Yes, and then you would need to call for a
Okay.
vote, ma'am.
Thank you. So all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say no.
No.
And that is a 2-1 recommendation that we move forward with this plan. Is there any other discussion? I don't think there's any other discussion we need at this time. Jen, is that it?
No, ma'am.
All
Just a
right.
motion to adjourn.
Madam
All
Chair, if I
right.
could make a
Unless-
comment before we adjourn?
Yes. Let me just hear Jen first, please. Yes.
No, certainly if you want to recognize someone else, you certainly are
okay.
able to do that.
All right. Jen. Councilman Fitch?
Yes, ma'am. I would just say for the individuals on the call today that even though it's going to the council with a recommendation of approval, the council, 5 members of the council could deny this still. It would take 5 votes to override this recommendation from the Planning Commission. So I just wanted that to be clear for everyone that's on the call at this point. And that's all I have, man. I will make a motion to adjourn.
So noted, and thank you very much. Second for adjournment?
Second.
All in favor, aye.
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 Those opposed, no. Thank you very much for your patience and your time. 45, we're about 3 minutes over. So stay tuned for the 3 o'clock meeting. Thank you very much.